on the outskirts of a town that had been forgotten. Jake lived in a trailer that was in a state of disrepair, and dust adhered to everything like a second skin. He was a single dad, the kind of man who kept his head down and his heart wide open. His hands were rough from years of hard labor fixing engines, hauling scrap, doing whatever it took to put food on the table. Life hadn't been kind to Jake, but he carried on for one reason: Lily. She was only 8, full of dreams and questions, with eyes that still saw magic in the world. Jake did his best to shield her from the weight he carried. Their trailer was falling apart. The roof leaked when it rained. The heater groaned in the winter, and the fridge often sounded like it was begging to be retired. Yet to Lily, it was home. Every morning before sunrise, Jake packed his rusted toolbox, kissed Lily on the forehead, and headed out. He worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs in a day, and always came back with a tired smile. The neighbors often whispered about how he was wasting his life, but Jake didn't care. Love, not luxury, kept their world turning. On some nights, when the wind whistled through the broken windows, he would quietly pray for a break, just one moment of grace. He had no idea that moment was already on its way, hidden just around the corner of a dusty road in a broken-down car. Late one afternoon, with the sun dipping low and painting the sky in hues of gold, Jake was driving his beat-up pickup along a quiet stretch of highway. He was running late to pick up Lily from a friend's place, but something on the roadside caught his eye. Sleek black luxury car had popped open, steam rising like a distress signal. Beside it stood a woman in heels and a designer coat. Frustration and worry etched across her face. Most cars sped past, but Jake's foot eased off the gas. He pulled over without hesitation. He grabbed his worn toolbox for the passenger seat and approached. "Looks like you've got some engine trouble," he said calmly. She nodded, clearly out of her element. Jake didn't ask questions or offer false reassurances. He simply got to work, sleeves rolled up, fingers moving with practiced precision. An hour passed under the fading light, and finally the engine sputtered, then roared back to life. The woman's eyes widened with relief. She reached in her purse and pulled out a thick stack of cash. "Please take this, you saved me." Jake wiped the grease from his hands and shook his head with a quiet smile. "Just helping someone out, ma'am," he replied softly. She stared at him for a long moment, struck by his humility. As Jake climbed back into his truck, he gave her a wave and drove off toward home, unaware that this small act of kindness had just lit the fuse on something far greater. The sky had turned deep blue by the time Jake pulled into the gravel driveway of their old trailer. The headlights cut across the chipped siding and sagging porch, but inside a single light glowed warmly. Lily burst through the door the moment he stepped out of the truck, wrapping her small arms around him. "You're late," she said with a pout, but her smile betrayed her relief. Jake ruffled her hair and gave her a tired grin. "Had to help someone out," he said simply. Inside, they sat cross-legged on the floor with 2 steaming bowls of canned soup between them. The TV was off. They didn't need it. Lily talked about school, about the drawing she made about a ladybug she found. Jake listened, laughed, nodded. His eyes were heavy, but his heart was light. He didn't mention the woman on the roadside or the fancy car or the money he refused to him. It was nothing more than the right thing to do. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, tugging at the corners of the trailer and carrying with it a stillness that felt like the pause before something big. Jake didn't notice. He just tucked Lily in a bed, kissed her forehead, and sat for a moment at the window, staring into the dark. He thought of nothing in particular, just the peace of having his daughter safe, fed, and asleep. He had no way of knowing that life quietly and suddenly was about to change. At dawn, the trailer park was quiet, wrapped in a soft glow of early light. Birds chirped faintly, and the air was still. Then came a low rumble, growing louder by the second. Windows rattled, pots on the shelf trembled. Jake jolted awake to the deafening roar of rotor blades. A helicopter was descending right above their lot, kicking up a storm of dust and leaves. Jake grabbed Lily and rushed outside, shielding her eyes from the flying debris. Neighbors peeked out from their doors, stunned. The chopper landed, its door swinging open. Out stepped the woman Jake had helped just the day before, but she was different now, confident, composed, and dressed in a sharp navy suit. Behind her, a small camera crew followed. She approached Jake with a smile that was both grateful and emotional. "Yesterday, I was stranded and helpless. No one stopped except you," she said, her voice carrying over the quiet crowd. "What you didn't know is I'm the CEO of a national company. And your act of kindness, it was caught on a dash cam. It went viral overnight." Jake stood frozen, his arm around Lily, confused but listening. Then she looked directly at him. "This man reminded me what humanity looks like," she said to the cameras. Turning back to Jake, she added, "I want to offer you a full-time job with benefits and a new home for you and your daughter." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jake blinked, stunned. Lily clutched his hand, tighter, her eyes wide with wonder. 1 year later, the morning sun rose over a quiet neighborhood filled with small, cheerful homes and neatly trimmed lawns. On one corner stood a modest house freshly painted with a swing on the porch and a bike lying in the yard. The front door opened, and Jake stepped out dressed in crisp, clean coveralls bearing the logo of the CEO's company. His face, once lined with fatigue, now carried a quiet confidence. "Don't forget your lunch," Lily called out while holding up a brown bag. She followed, her ponytail swaying and her backpack bouncing as she skipped to the porch steps. "Don't forget your lunch." The question, "What would I do without you?" was asked by Jake as he laughed and kissed her on the forehead. He chuckled as he made his way toward the truck that was parked in the driveway. He turned around to see Lily waving with the same wide smile that had always been his motivation to keep going. She was thriving now, safe, happy, and full of hope inside the house. The refrigerator was full, the heater was working, and the future no longer felt like a distant dream. Jake didn't talk much about that day on the highway anymore because he didn't feel the need to. It lived quietly in everything that had changed, and as the screen faded to black, a voice spoke softly and with a whole lot of warmth. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness reverberate louder than we can imagine, and for Jake and Lily, it changed everything.